Welcome to the Not a Rabbi podcast. This is season 3, episode number 2, I believe. And thank you all for checking out the last episode with our special guest and Not a Rabbi legal correspondent, Brett Urich. It was a blast having him on the show, and we do hope to have him back. We have another topic we're percolating right now, and I'm excited to talk about that as well. I think I got a pretty interesting show going on for you today, and what it is, and also before I start getting into the meat of the show, or a little bit of the meat of the show, unless you're vegan or vegetarian, then it's definitely not the meat of the show. But would like to thank, as always, the Fifth Column Discord server for hosting me and allowing me to do this on their internet, I guess. I don't know, whatever. I'd like to thank everybody who is in the channel as well. You know who you are. And let's get into it. What I have today, what I wanted to talk about, a couple of things today, and we'll see how long the follow-up stuff that we have. We've got a couple of issues of follow-up that I want to do. We also have some regular news that I want to do, and I have a question that I'd like to address as the main topic of the show, should there be enough time. We'll see what happens. Hey, but let's get right into it. So, in the last episode of Season 2, we had talked about the Major League Baseball draft and how, as something that was pretty groundbreaking, which was the Orthodox Jews, 2 Orthodox Jews, in fact, were drafted as prospects in the Major League Baseball draft. One of them was an individual by the name of Jacob Steinmetz, and the other one was a gentleman by the young man, I should say, by the name of Eli Kliegman. They are both not in college yet, and they were both drafted. One by the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the other by the Washington Nationals, I would like to say, but I have to double check. Yes, the Washington Nationals. So anyhow, and I had said that there are going to be some interesting questions about how they go about doing some things in the, based on Jewish law, with vis-a-vis playing baseball. And there is an interesting article written in the Times of Israel, and the Times of Israel's blog section. I have to point that out because it's, probably a little bit different. Their standards of journalism are probably slightly more relaxed. And what it's talking about here is how Shabbos gets defined and how this would work with vis-a-vis playing baseball in a stadium. Now, this is written by an individual by the name of Elchanan Pupko. Side story, and probably will get off onto a tangent, but I know multiple cousins of his. I'm not going to say it was his uncle. I don't think it was his father. His probably might have been his uncle, or I'm sure it was his father, his uncle, who was the rabbi in Pittsburgh at the point in time that while I was growing up. He was the rabbi of one of the big synagogues over there, and as things work out, serendipitously, I also now attend the synagogue where his father found his another Pupko brother of this Pupko, who Rabbi Baruch Pupko, who was the rabbi in Pittsburgh. I actually am a member of the synagogue where the brother, Rabbi Chaim Yitzchak Pupko, founded the synagogue. So it's crazy how this goes, and I am, it's very interesting, like I said. But so I know a couple of people in the family, very interesting family history. What I won't get into that because I don't want to go down too far down a rabbit hole on that. So this talks about the idea, so briefly, and this, it goes more into depth about it, but there are 39 main creative types of labors, which there are multiple subsets of those 39 main creative labors that we have that we can't do on the Sabbath. And this Rabbi Pupko, Elchanan Pupko, goes on to talk about some of the challenges that there may be and with this individual, and is it going to be, and this is actually a very interesting question in and of itself, is it the letter of the law or is it the spirit of the law? And this is a question which everybody asks and everyone deals with in their own lives, either in any sort of way, either religiously or even non-religiously. They're gonna deal with it in this, these types of questions sometimes in their lives. And it may be that within the letter of the law, let's say if they're able to walk to the park, to the stadium, all of these other things get allowed for them. They could actually play ball in the park. It's going to be something that is going to be very interesting, I feel, to watch them develop and see how they go about doing things in their minor league situations, because a lot of times the minor league parks, for those of you that don't know, once you get drafted as from a major league team, you get assigned to a minor league team. At that minor league team, those are generally smaller communities or cities that you're going to be playing in, which may or may not have a Orthodox Jewish community associated with them. So you don't automatically, if you get drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, for example, and that's just because I'm using them as an example because I'm a fan of the Pirates. But if you get drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates, then you go ahead and you don't start automatically in Pittsburgh, but you're going to work your way up. You got to start from a minor league team. I think they have one in Greensboro, West Virginia. They've got a team in Altoona. They've got a team in Indianapolis, which Indianapolis as the last leg in the minor league stage, the AAA team before you get up to the major leagues. Indianapolis may have somewhat of a Jewish community. I'm not really sure, but Altoona certainly does not. So it'll be interesting to see, and I'm sure that there are other places there that may or may not have these issues. Also, for anybody that is hearing any noise in the background, I do apologize for the background noise. My recording studio now, once we've moved, is adjacent to the laundry room. So there may be a little bit of that, and I did not do the timing very well today. So I apologize, but that is what it is. And Ren, thank you very much. Everything sounds good. I am very glad to hear that. Thank you very much. Also, good to see you back in the channel. Thank you. Anyhow, so that is the first article about this drafting situation. There is another article with regard to this drafting situation. Yes, and Ren says she is here for the baseball, knowing nothing about baseball. Well, we could always, teach you, learn you up about something. You just have to go. It's actually interesting. I'll digress for 2 seconds, because one of the things I was thinking of when I was talking about this last article is that if you're going to be playing in what is called Rogers Park now, is that what it's called in Toronto? There is a hotel associated with, or adjacent, not even adjacent, but built into the stadium itself. And what you can do is, theoretically, they could actually go ahead and rent a room for one of the players, or for one of these two players, and have them stay there. Just walk right into the stadium. It might be very easy to do. Again, it'll be interesting to see how they, as individuals, deal with these laws. Now, some people one of them, both of them, or neither of them may go ahead and decide that they do not want to, keep be religious anymore, and that's going to just be what it is. So it's very, very interesting, like I said, to watch. Okay, so the next one is another article from the Jewish Press this time, which is an old publication based on when I say old publication, I mean it's been around for a very, very long time here in Brooklyn. The Jewish Press has an article also about these types of topics. An individual by the name of Rabbi Uri Pilichowski, and I hope to be pronouncing that name correctly. I do not know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. Rabbi, if you are listening and I did not pronounce it correctly, I do apologize. But he talks about some things with regard to some pop culture stuff, which one of them is a new TV show, which I'm not going to get into because there is a lot about that. And he's trying to tie this into some other issues that happened. Of course, the big thing that everybody talks about when they talk about these young baseball players getting drafted is the fact that most famously, Sandy Koufax, who was a pitcher in the 1950s for the Los Angeles Dodgers, was Jewish. I think is he still alive? I'll have to check that out. But let's just assume that he is. But he refused to pitch, and because he was starting a baseball game, World Series game to be specific, and he went ahead and he refused to pitch on Yom Kippur, which is mostly not mostly, but it is the holiest day of the Jewish calendar altogether. And it was a big thing. People still refer to it because it is a very big thing. And what he talks about in this case is a couple of things. One is, will these individuals, Mr. Steinmetz and Kligman, inspire our children to draw closer to Judaism, and God willing that they, like I said, that they'll stay religious, these people. Additionally, he brings up the whole issue of Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, where Jared Kushner is an observant Jew. Ivanka, his wife, went ahead and converted to be Orthodox as well. And they actually send their daughters to a religious camp, for a sleepaway camp. And just as an aside, for the last 4 years, I knew about this. I mean, it's not a big secret, but people whom I know were in the camp as well, or they had sons-in-law or something in the camp as administrators, and they were telling me about how the Secret Service was trying to blend into this camp, and it was just not doing it. So it's very, very interesting. In any event, so it's an interesting article. I think that it's less of a interesting article with regard, now that I'm looking at it and giving it a little bit more thought, I think it's less of an interesting article vis-a-vis the baseball issue, but it is something that, basically his overall pitch, pun fully intended, and hopefully most of you caught that, was the fact that if they decide to remain Jewish, not to be ashamed of their Judaism. Do not be ashamed of it. Keep it and be proud of it. Do some follow-up, and we'll be continuing, because I am also, I still like baseball. I've always had a love of baseball, and played baseball in Little League, which means absolutely nothing, but I did want to give a shout-out to the Squirrel Hill Little League once again for one of the listeners of the blog, of the podcast. But, okay, we move on to the next topic, which is also a follow-up, and this is a follow-up from a show that we had in season 2 as well, and which is, and this is really old news, very old news, but that is what it is. Gannett apologizes for misogynistic ethnic slur in photo caption. Again, you could go ahead and listen to the previous show. I will throw up a link in the show notes if you need to refresh your memory. So please go ahead. Anyway, there was a caption under a photo of an Orthodox woman nurse at the Center for Health Education in Lakewood, New Jersey, saying, "This is a hot nurse," A total Jap loads a syringe with a dose of Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. At first, they did the deny type of strategy, and they went ahead and they also, what's really strange is that this editor said that he apologizes to the Asian American community as well. Now, as always, context matters. And one of the interesting things with this context here is they use the word Jap. Now, in this case, Jap is not used as an ethnic slur for someone from Japan. However, what this is referring to is someone who is what they call a Jewish American princess. And obviously that is an acronym for that. And there is a lot of negative connotations which go into using that acronym specifically to refer to somebody. So anyway, it's disappointing, still disappointing, even though that they did fess up to it and apologized for it. I just wanted to bring that to attention and get some closure on that. Like I said, it's been in my list of things to talk about for a while, but I just never got around to doing so. So there we go with some of that follow-up. Okay, who's ready for some news? Let's not all cheer at the same time. Okay, so first issue of news. I've got a couple, and we'll see how many I get through. I'm going to try to get through the interesting ones first. Okay, I got raised hands. Awesome. But let's not always see the same set of hands, please. Okay, my teaching coming through there. Sorry. Okay, so the first one is, again, from the Times of Israel. This is an actual honest-to-goodness news article from them. And this is about an individual by the name of Bidi Deutsch. And Ms. Deutsch is a mother. She is an Orthodox woman, and she is now marathoner. She runs that 26.2 miles, and just remember, as always, anyone can run 26 miles. It's that 0.2 miles that really gets you. She had won in the Israel's National Championship Marathon in 2019. She was going to be running in the Olympics. However, from what I remember, she did not run in the Olympics, or she is not running in the Olympics because the Olympics is still going on at this as I record this. But she didn't do that. However, she is not running in the Olympics, from what I understand. And the reason for that is that the Olympics the events that she would be running are going to be taking place on a Saturday, and which is obviously Shabbos. Now, as to quote John Goodman, as I am wont to do, she does not roll on Shabbos, so she is not going to be doing the running on Shabbos, and so she decided to not run. Interesting story in and of itself. What's interesting about this is Adidas has gone ahead and made her is putting a ad campaign about her. They're putting together an ad campaign about her. And what is very interesting about this is, if you take a look, you'll see she is not wearing typical runner's garb. Now, I think I have a couple of runners, or at least one runner in the audience, in the chat here, but she does not run. She'll run with her head covered, as per what Orthodox women who are married generally do, and she consistently wears long sleeves, and she's wearing loose fitting skirts, not long. I mean, I don't know if they're denim. That would probably weigh down a little bit too much on the running. I'll leave that to the experts on that. But if you take a look at the article, which I'll actually post in the chat for those kids, you'll see she's wearing. I think they photoshopped this picture of her, but I think that she definitely is wearing clothing which is more modest than your typical running clothing is. Again, this is not a criticism of the running clothing. I get why you need to run that. And yes, you will not confuse her for a beach volleyball player. That is completely true. Total aside, I just saw an article, and I didn't get a chance to read it yet, but I just saw an article about where they actually do want to get rid of the bikinis for beach volleyball. I think the popularity of the sport would probably go down considerably if they do that, but this is something that they want to do. Apparently, I got to find the article again. I saw it like for 2 seconds somewhere. So regardless, this is an interesting article, and I think that it's a very inspiring and positive article as well, because specifically there is a lot of unfortunate harassment that goes on and misunderstanding, really, that goes on with regard to Orthodox Jewish women that really needs to be shattered. Not a glass ceiling, so to speak, but it's stuff that really just the whole concept and the whole idea and term is on the tip of my head, tip of my tongue, I should say, not on the tip of my head. If it's on the tip of my head, you could probably see it because I don't have any hair. But stereotype, thank you. The entire stereotype and paradigm really needs to change and go ahead to something a little bit more positive. And I think that individuals like Beatty Deutsch are very inspiring in that aspect, and because they can do this in a very popular way. I don't want to say, not popular is not the right word, but they could do this in a very visible way. Whereas, let's say, the Orthodox woman who is running some department in the government is not doing it in such a visible way because she, even though there were some news articles about her, she's not an athlete. She's a career person in with these agencies. So it's a totally different type of. It's the same idea, but it's a totally different type of visibility that's going to be there. And I think that this is very good. I think this is showing a lot of different and positive things going on. Any questions from the chat? This is about an individual by the name. Oh, by the way, it's a New York Times. It's a New York Times article. So it does ask you to create an account. I'll let you deal with that as you may. It is talking about an individual by the name of Amber Adler, and she ran for city council in New York City, which again I thought is a very brave decision. I like that decision, and I think that this is wonderful, and I think it's a very good thing. However, as with a lot of other individuals that try to break the paradigm, they have a slow going. As always, it's always the settlers that get the pioneers that get the arrows, right? That's probably not politically correct anymore. But anyway, so she ran for city council. People in the community, and she's Orthodox. She's an Orthodox woman who is married with children, and people questioned her choice. Not only did people question her choice, she received abusive messages from individuals, caustic comments, even a protest against her. So imagine this: and why are they protesting? Because she is a woman. It's very unfortunate. It's an issue that the community here in Brooklyn specifically has with sometimes with women doing what are considered quote unquote men's jobs, and I think that it's really stupid. It reminds me of another situation, which was a woman who's actually now a civil court judge by the name of Ruchi Fryer, and you can do a Google search on her if you want, started an organization of women, all women volunteer ambulance organization. Because there were some women who had felt like they wanted to have only women examine them when it came to specific issues. They did not want some strange guy going ahead and doing the examination. They felt it would be more comfortable and befitting them to have a woman going ahead and doing the initial checking out of these types of issues, of these types of medical issues. And anyhow, she had originally gone to an organization called Hatzalah, which is the big dog when it comes to volunteer ambulance here in New York, Brooklyn specifically. Their response times are incredible. I mean, I'm talking about sometimes under 6 minutes from call to response at somebody's house. They do a very good job. However, this is a point where I do disagree with them a lot, which is they went ahead and they said, no, you cannot join, even as an all-women division of Hatzalah, you cannot join. And they went ahead and did that. So Ruchi Fryer decided, who's a lawyer, civil court judge, like I said, she went ahead and she formed an all-woman volunteer service separate from this Hatzalah. It's called Ezras Nashim. Nashim being the Hebrew noun for women, and Ezras is like kind of a verb for helping women, or shield for women. Ozer could be used as a shield. Multiple term, Hebrew is not as strict with the language translations as other things. As other languages. So but that's basically loosely what it means. And they had a huge amount of feedback. If you want to see some of the problems that they had, there is a documentary by the name of, I believe it is 93 Queen. Let me just, yes, 93 Queen. It was on PBS. You might be able to find it on a streaming service. I would have to look. But if anybody else wants to do the looking for me, that is wonderful. And these are problems. But again, I think that this is a great positive face being put on to going ahead and doing this, because this is what these are the role models, in my personal opinion, and somebody who has a daughter. Of course, she's 21. She's got, she's good. But once the community, and they need women. All kids need positive role models. And the more positive role models that you have, the better off you're going to be. And I think that these are people who are positive. Both of these people, Bidi Deutsch and Amber Adler, are positive role models. And I think that it's a great idea. And something that should be, as I said, something that should be very celebrated, and all good things should go to them, I guess you could say. Oh my good, no. Oh, this is a cool piece of news. Again, it is a month old, so I apologize for not getting to it earlier. But this is just some brief backstory, I guess you could say. I am a biblical archaeology fan. I think that I'm fascinated by it. I don't always agree with their findings of what they, or what they've found, and how they interpret the findings, but I always think that it's very cool. And here we have an article from Israel National News, and again, I am going to post this into the chat for those if they would like to follow along. And it talks about the first temple era segment of Jerusalem's city wall uncovered. And this would have potentially been the portion of the wall that was breached before Nebuchadnezzar went ahead and invaded Jerusalem and then laid waste and destroyed the first temple. So we have this dating back, which is awesome, and I think it's very, very cool. So anyway, yeah. So they found this stuff, and it is fascinating, and I like it, and it is very fascinating. They found other findings from the First Temple era, which is, again, cool. I'm a fan. But we will talk about that later. Okay. Anyhow, so what are we at on time? We are at 39 minutes. So I could probably do, yeah. Let's see here. Finally, in the news, and I think we might just leave it at the news segments for today. But if I can only find my note-taking app, here we go. Okay. Final piece. Last week we talked about, or last episode, it'll be last week or so, but I talked about Ragman being the first Jewish superhero, or a mostly well-known Jewish superhero, I should say. I don't know if they're, like I said, I think Kitty Pryde is probably the most well-known Jewish superhero, but I think the emphasis on the ish with Kitty as opposed to the Jew. Also, there's Ben Grimm. Okay, like I said, I'm going to go far afield on that one because this is also hits my geek zone very, very heavily. Okay, and this talks about the topic, or the title, I should say, of this article from a website which I've never heard of again, but that doesn't mean anything, called Comics XF. And it says, Superman the Jew, a history of people through the world's greatest hero. And what this does is this kind of goes ahead, and this is from when? This is from August 2nd, so it's relatively up to date. Good for me. But what this talks about is that some of the stuff that, Superman originally happened with him as being a stranger in a strange land and all of this stuff, was he actually, this is an interesting point here, that he debuted in Action Comics #1, June of 1938, 3 years before the Nazis marched into a part of Lithuania called Kovno, which had a huge, very large Jewish community. Very famous people lived there, well-known Talmudic scholars and the like. But this goes through the history of Siegel and Schuster, was it? Siegel and Schuster? Yes, I believe so. Who founded, Siegel and Schuster, who created Superman. And they were Jews, I believe, living in Cleveland at the time. It goes through a little bit of the history and, how he shows, there are certain Jewish parts to him. So anyway, it was it's pretty interesting. Of course, it does mention in the article Michael Chabon's, or Cabon, I never get that straight. Just like GIF or GIF, I don't even know. But it talks about his book, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which kind of is a fictional account, or The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which is basically a fictional account of Siegel and Schuster creating Superman and the like. So, any event, I thought it's interesting, again, as somebody that read comics I think I started as an older adult, or a older young adult, whatever. I started in my 20s reading comics, really. So I find this stuff fascinating. I'm big into it. I'm not big into comics anymore. I don't really read because I don't think the comics are all that good, but that's a different topic for a different time. That is some of the follow-up and some of the news that we have going on today. Any questions from the chat? Comment from one of the people here, who says, BD Deutsch's Instagram is so wholesome. All right. I'm glad to hear that. Being that I am not on Instagram, it's a little bit difficult for me to see that, and if just as an aside from on that, if you're interested in an interview with BD Deutsch, there is There's a show, which is on YouTube, I believe, called Behind the Bema. The Bema is a Hebrew-ish term for the big table where we read the Torah, or the Torah gets read. And it's a series by the senior rabbi of the Boca Raton Synagogue, by the name of Ephraim Goldberg, and he does a interview with somebody every week, and it's fascinating. It could be fascinating. I will try to post a link to that in the show notes as well, to get her, to get a better full story, and obviously it's going to focus on Judaism, because it's a rabbi and it's called Behind the Bema, so it wouldn't be surprising, but it focuses on her life and challenges and how she gets through some of these challenges. And it might be an inspiring story, so I'm going to post that in the show notes as well. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for listening to the podcast. This is Season 3, Episode 2, which is just pretty much a follow-up and news roundup episode. And I'd like to ask everybody, as a small request, I don't like to ask, there's a guy that used to be in marketing and sales. I don't do a good job at this. However, I would like to make a request for you to subscribe, to review the podcast, so we can, get this a little bit more notice. The more reviews that we get, the better it is. If you don't like it, leave a bad review. I'm okay with that. I'm secure enough to deal with that. Anyhow, as I say that, as I'll be crawling up into the fetal position once I get my first bad review. Thank you very much all for listening. I am Aaron Benedict, and of course, I am not a rabbi.